This video covers Chapter 11 in the Digital Marketing Analytics text for BA 375 Online Marketing. In Chapter 11, we're talking about how we use digital analytics to anticipate a crisis. Every company encounters a crisis at some point in time. With today's digital age, with social media, the instant of information that we have availability, news of a crisis spreads across multiple channels and spreads very, very quickly. Google uses the traffic about your brand in their search algorithm. So the higher the traffic, the higher the crisis will come up in searches about your brand. In fact, as the book talks about, even 20 years after some crises, that still comes up in the search engine in the top 2 pages about different companies. So it's very difficult to sometimes recover from a crisis or to hide a crisis. Any type of crisis management plan that a company puts into place should include their social media management because people are going to be talking about the crisis across social media. This is a modern day issues management plan that is covered in the textbook and talks about the different ways to set up this crisis management plan. So on the left side here, before we want to create an early warning system. So identify what potential issues are going to be, prepare for that content, and then on the day that the issue hits, how they manage that issue. And then afterwards, we have to still monitor and watch how we're creating our content. We also need to review how did we handle that and did we learn things that we're going to implement differently the next time. So this modern day issues management plan looks at social media listening to create an early warning system. And we're going to talk through these 3 phases in the next couple of slides. So identify known issues, facing the crisis on the day it happens, and then correcting history. First is identify the known issues. 90% of issues can be forewarned through the company. So look at what is the current share of conversation volume? What issues are being talked about in the conversation volume? Do we have influencers that are talking about us, both negatively and positively? Get to know those influencers. How can we utilize those influencers as part of our social media response when the crisis does hit? How can we partner with them so that we have content right into place? And when we place the right content, we should have content pre-planned for various crises. And part of that is because when you're trying to mitigate a crisis right when it's happening, it's difficult to come up with different content and stuff. It's very helpful to have at least a baseline. Now, it's difficult to pre-plan the exact right content, but you can pre-plan a baseline. Know the positive and negative keywords that the internet is going to use for searches that go along with those issues, and make sure you're tagging the right words in your content mitigation plan. So first step is making a list of the known issues. So document various issues that can affect your brand online. Talk to other people. Talk to your legal department, your human resources department, different managers and business units, and various senior executives. A lot of them might find different potential crises that the other department doesn't know about or doesn't have a heads up about. But there are a wide variety of various issues that could pop up and affect the company reputation, especially when we think about like the legal department. There could be things in the pipeline that they know about that haven't hit the public yet that could be a potential issue. Some examples of this would be Toyota's response. Toyota and Volkswagen both had some responses with their vehicles. And the delayed time it took them to respond is actually part of the highest part of the negative press surrounding both of those issues is that they knew about the issues and instead they tried to bury them instead of trying to respond to them. And of course, it backfired on both brands. Know the share of conversation. So once we have a set of listed issues, we can develop keywords that match those issues, and we can create social listening plans that just look for those issues monitoring. For example, you can build a specific dashboard just to display your issue monitoring social listening on separate from your regular social listening and update your issues as they change. As we go through business, as we launch new products, as we do different marketing campaigns, as various things happen in the world, our issues are going to change. So that issues list needs to be consistently looked at and updated. Then we need to think about a response plan. And part of that response plan is knowing influencers that are driving the conversation, even the positive and negative influencers, and build a relationship with them so we can utilize them as part of our crisis management plan. Knowing our keywords, we have a lot of tools to determine what those keywords are. For example, Google Keyword Planner, which we've looked at in previous chapters. Keyword Finder, SEMrush, Keyword Explorer from Moz, Content Insights from BuzzSumo. I hope you've looked at a variety of these tools as they have come up throughout the semester. Now the crisis has hit, and how do we deal with it? How do we report? How often do we report? How do we respond to people? Are we going to just put out a statement and then see how that goes before we decide if we're going to put something else out? Or are we going to try to respond to all of the people making comments or just the loudest voices making comments? Or are we not going to respond to anybody at all? So deal with the issue hitting. As they said, you don't have any time to do any of the previously mentioned research on the day of the crisis. You don't get to spend a lot of time planning and researching and how you're going to respond to it. So you should have a plan in place before that day hits. Now, sometimes that's difficult. Sometimes those things are taken out of your hands, depending on the emergency or the crisis. And of course, develop a schedule, who's going to be responding when, who is going to be responding. This is a huge. Who are you going to have be the spokesperson for that crisis? Is it all employees can respond? Is it only the CEO is going to be the public face of that, or the VP, or someone being the very public face of that? We develop our content plan. What are we going to say? How often are we going to post it? Which social media platforms are we going to post on? Preparing the first response on the same channel where the news broke. So we've even talked about this in class before, that even though news breaks all over the internet, a lot of the immediate response happens on Twitter to various crises. And utilizing our senior leaders as part of that response plan. In fact, in the videos for this week, you see a crisis that Domino's Pizza endured and how they responded to it by utilizing their senior leaders. So, how often should we report to others? Now, this isn't our social media posts or the information that we're putting out, this is internally to people within our organization, to executives, to investors. How often should we report to others about the crisis? So during the crisis, we just want to send short reports, frequent emails. Hey, we're aware of this crisis. We're currently in the process of looking at it. We will give you more information as we have it. And then after the crisis, you can prepare a full report to present about the crisis. And then correcting the history after a crisis is over. So, really looking in depth at the crisis day, which social media platforms were used, who was talking about that information, did you choose the right influencers, did you have the right keywords, were you prepared, and if not, or even partially prepared, how can you utilize this information to make your next crisis plan even better? And that is the end of chapter 11 in the digital analytics.